Hello. Hello, folks, one and all. Good to see you. I come to you today with a cold because I have a cold, which is such a bummer, and we're here to chat. Also, we did get a new cat. Meet the cat. Here's our new cat. His name is Doe. Doe Noodle in full. Hey, Doe. You're in my shot, Doe. My original plans for this weekend was I had booked a bus ticket to go to Washington, D.C. for the big protest there, but unfortunately with this cold, I am hacking and I am snotting all over the place, and I didn't want to do that on a bus with a bunch of strangers for 18 hours because I would probably make them uncomfortable. So I gave up my ticket to somebody else, that way somebody else can go for free in my place. And so I thought to myself, what kind of video am I going to make? And I decided to do a response to a video that I made a long time ago. Who here has seen the Is God Good If Hell Is Real video? Leave a like if you have. I just went back and rewatched it after all this time. I do get emotional, so I was scared to watch it because I was like, that's gonna be cringe, isn't it? Me crying? But it was really powerful and it made me cry watching it actually. So apparently it's a really good video. But I just want to give a general update on that whole situation. I think probably going back and watching that video would be a good prerequisite to watching this video, but if you don't feel like watching that one, you don't have to. But I'm gonna leave a little thing for it here, and I'll leave it in the description, and I'll leave it in the pinned comment, so you can find the first video if you're looking for it. I have here a tiny little notebook, and it's filled with my notes on the matter. Okay. After that video, I began a journey, and that journey that I began was one where I was resisting God. I was trying to fight against the Lord himself. Great God Almighty, as they say. What am I doing? I wasn't resisting God in a I want to sin and God won't let me sin type of way. It was my refusal to justify endless torment. I was resisting God's concept of hell, which God presents in God's book, the Bible. I still believed in God, I just couldn't worship God anymore, not with hell existing. So I chose to give up heaven and face hell to show God's cruelty to all who would see it. I was trying to make a statement of, I would rather go to hell than worship a God who would allow a hell to exist, basically. And that was my stance. And it was scary. The prospect of eternal torture is scary. And willingly choosing to go there just because you won't worship somebody is bold, to say the least. Anyways, things changed for me after I picked up some books about evolution and learned about evolution. That was a fun adventure. A lot of science finally started to click and make sense in my mind when I was reading those books, and I was in a way bummed that I had missed out on a lifetime of learning science like that, because folks, if you've never read about evolution, if you've been brought up in a sort of indoctrinated space, you should look at some books about evolution because it is quite fascinating, and they seem to have an awful lot of evidence to back it up. It is not some sort of strange conspiracy, from what I've found, at least. Anyways, learning about evolution enabled me to go full atheist. And going full atheist, I was an angry atheist. It's a thing. Look it up. You can listen to Rhett and Link's Deconstruction podcast, and they talk about how they went through a phase of being angry atheists as well. In my angry atheist phase, I wrote an entire novel. I'm talking 60,000 plus words, all to express my anger with God and religion. I haven't published this book yet, but I do hope to someday. Maybe I'll try to do that this summer, and that would be really fun, right? I could put out a book, you all would read the book, you'd be like, wow, I just read a book by this guy that I know, that's crazy. Well, my book puts God into modern times, so it makes God a person, a character, somebody that actually exists, and we know like, okay, this is God. And then I retell Bible stories within this modern context, using this modern God, and it's an effort to show how evil and genocidal God is in the Bible. For example, say the flood from the Bible, which was a mass genocide that slaughtered every human, every animal on the planet, except for one family of people and one family of animals, somehow. Converting that to modern times, how do you convert a flood, a worldwide flood, into modern times? Well, I interpreted that as, say, you nuked an entire country, basically the same thing, and insanely twisted that anybody would do that, right? Yeah, so yeah, being an angry atheist, once again here, I wasn't angry at God because he was like trying to impose rules on my life. I was angry at the indoctrination that shaped who I was for all these years, that withheld me from learning science that everybody else was learning, and I was angry at the indoctrination because it turned me into an evil person. It turned me into a bigot. I really hate the homophobia and transphobia of Christianity. It has become so elevated in the church that for some, their faith is dependent on it. I spoke to someone a year ago who said that if it wasn't a sin to be gay, they'd have to stop believing the whole Bible. Their whole faith hinges on 6 verses. They can't look at the verses from a historical perspective. They can't ask about the context. They've made up a moral law. Let's be real here, folks. The Bible has verses in the New Testament that say women shouldn't teach, but you don't see Christians protesting outside every school in the world trying to replace all the female teachers with male ones. Look, Christians ignore stuff in the Bible all the time. When's the last time you saw a Christian sell all they had and give everything to the poor?
Editing Brandon here, just to point out that you should never let a Christian tell you that the United States was founded on Christian values or is a Christian nation. If this is a Christian nation founded on Christian values, then why are there people living in poverty? Why are there children growing up in poverty? Why are there homeless people living on the streets? Okay, because the whole thing in the Bible is sell all you have and give to the poor. Take care of the orphans, the widows, the homeless. So like, what Christian values are they talking about? The nation that was founded on the idea that you could own human beings as property is somehow the nation that was founded on Christian values, and now we have tons of children growing up in poverty and nothing is being done to help them because everything is all designed to serve the rich. And Jesus went into the temple and literally beat the shit out of the rich. So I'm confused.
It's interesting to me that Christians never hinge their faith on verses that say things like, faith without works is dead, help the poor, the orphans, the widows, love your enemies. No, they hinge their faith on some random verses from Leviticus and use them to run a political campaign against gay and trans people. Wow. You really want me to believe that God can only be real if it's a sin to be gay? Bro, you're dumb. Your religion is dumb, and it's fake, and it's rooted in hate and ignorance. I said it. This is my wake-up call to all you Christians out there who are struggling with these sorts of concepts. When 80% of being a Christian is being embarrassed about how awful your beliefs are and trying to justify them, maybe it's time to move on. And then here's my last point here on this section. We know historically that the Bible was used to justify slavery. When you use it to justify homophobia, transphobia, and sexism, all you're telling me is that you would have used it to justify slavery too, because you're using it as a tool for oppression right here and now. Anyways, now we're changing tracks, jumping into a new topic. What comes after the angry atheist phase? Well, it's the scared atheist phase. Yeah, once the initial rage wore off and I was kind of settled, a big fear of death hit, y'all. Because I grew up with an afterlife. I grew up with an afterlife that was literally called heaven being guaranteed to me by every adult that I trusted in my life. They all were like, heaven is real, you're a Christian, you're going there, it's gonna be really awesome for eternity after you die. And suddenly, becoming an atheist yoinked that away from me. I found myself facing down an abyss, oblivion, a complete erasure of myself, a void, which is quite daunting when you were thinking you were gonna go to heaven, and suddenly you're thinking, oh my gosh, when I die, all of my memory of my entire existence is just going to be erased, going to be gone, as if it never happened, as if I never existed. What is the point of all of this? I'm freaking out. I couldn't handle it. It obsessed my mind. It depressed me. Basically, I had had the crutch of religion pulled away, and I was having to stand on my own 2 feet and face the void. And I could not do it. It was way too scary. So what did I do? I came up with coping mechanisms. I came up with ways to deal with this crushing fear. I read this book called Why Fish Don't Exist, and within the book, they talk about how people who delude themselves in positive ways literally have healthier, better lives. I was utilizing that. I was calling it positive thoughts and self-delusions, and I was saying to myself, I'm gonna live forever. I'm never gonna die. I'm never going to grow old. And I was repeating it to myself like a mantra. And it would strangely help. It's like, I know that it's not true, but it's helpful. And I mean, I kind of created my own little pseudoscience to go with it even. I said to myself, my brain is the thing that is keeping all of my organs functioning. It's the little powerhouse that's got this whole thing pumping and inhaling and exhaling. So why can't my brain just tell my organs not to age? My brain theoretically wants to live because it has to live in order to keep functioning. So if my brain wants me to live enough, it can put in the effort to keep my organs functioning and keep me healthy. Can I convince my brain to keep me alive indefinitely? I don't know. But they do say that positive thoughts and self-delusions can be good for you, so I'm gonna try, aren't I? I have to try something. I'm scared of dying. I would do that, and it worked as a coping mechanism, and then inevitably it would fail, and I would fall back into the cycle of fear until I was able to rebuild myself back out of it. At one point, I was talking with someone, and we kind of came up with this idea of like, we literally don't know what's gonna happen when we die. Nobody knows. There's no confirmation. So why can't you, if you're already doing positive thoughts and self-delusions, why can't you just tell yourself that when you die, it's going to be a good experience? There's going to be some sort of afterlife where all life will be there and things will be good. You know what I mean? If you're already self-deluding yourself with the idea that you'll live forever, why not just self-delude yourself with a concept of heaven that works, that makes sense for you? And I was like, that's actually a good point. Anyways, most recently, I've kind of just been like, you know what? Everybody freaking dies. Everybody does. It's an experience that we're all going to share. The children that I work with at school are going to grow old and die, just like me, just like everybody else, just like the unborn people, just like the newborn babies. It is a universal shared experience across all humans, all animals, and all plant life. It just kind of happens. So whatever I'm going towards, I'm not going alone. Tons of people have gone before me. People are going right now. So I'm just gonna have to kind of buck up and go for the ride, right? And in the meantime, I gotta live. But I'm still self-deluding myself that I'm gonna live forever, because why not? I do think my brain can keep my body alive indefinitely, because why not? I also read the book Outlive, which was kind of all about how you can increase your health span, and that also gave me some comfort and some things that I could actively do to live longer, which I enjoyed. I do have some questions, though. I do wonder, what would it have been like if I hadn't been indoctrinated to believe in heaven and then had it taken away from me when I became an atheist? I want to hear from lifelong atheists, do you fear death in the way that I'm describing how I fear death? Or is this a symptom of my faith loss and the fact that I had an afterlife and now I've lost my promised afterlife? I'm curious to know. I would love to know what people who are raised atheist, how they feel about that stuff, what they think about that stuff. I would just be curious. So please share. Now I have another section of notes that kind of talk about the concept of God being all merciful. Would any of us ever torture someone for their entire life? Would you do that? Would you ever take someone's life? Would you actively become a torturer of people? Would you do that? If you're answering no to those questions, then congratulations, you are already more merciful than the all-merciful God. If, however, you're answering, yes, I would torture someone, yes, I would take a life, maybe these things don't faze you. Maybe you think that that would be super easy to do. But no matter how much pain and destruction you cause, you can never make that pain eternal. You are still more merciful than the all-merciful. And frankly, also, if you are willing to torture or kill your fellow humans, I don't have much respect for you, so why would I respect God? For creating hell, a place of eternal torture, and for committing genocide multiple times throughout Scripture, and for allowing murder to continue to happen? We gotta talk about suffering, okay? People love to blame the struggles and suffering in this world on Satan, and I just want to ask, who created Satan? When Satan planned a coup, who condemned him instead of forgiving him for his crime? The gospel is all about forgiveness, but all the pain and suffering and sin that we commit and need forgiven of comes from the fact that God refused to forgive Satan. So if God had just forgiven Satan for trying to take the throne in the first place, then there would be no need for all of this forgiveness, because Satan wouldn't have become some weird enemy, all-powerful, all-knowing, all-consuming, controlling the earth, making everybody do bad things enemy. Like, come on. That's a bit ridiculous, right? It seems like along the way, God could have made things better with Satan, could have extended that grace and mercy to him, and then maybe he would have stopped causing all the suffering in the world, but God just refuses to forgive Satan, and so we all have to suffer, and then a lot of us have to go to hell for eternity where we suffer, while God looks on and says this is good. So those are my thoughts. I think that's literally every note that I have written. What is the current phase that I am in? I'm in my communist atheist phase. Yes, help the poor, help the needy, help the widows, love your enemies. That is such a radical concept. Even outside of religion, that's such a radical concept. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm at a sort of a crossroads where I'm looking at the world, our lives, and I'm just processing that there is so much suffering in the world, and all of it seems to be happening because of human greed. And the Bible is not a fan of human greed. So you would expect Christians to not be a fan of it either, and yet so often they are. I'm trying to oppose greed. I'm trying to say my little piece, my little, hey, workers of the world, unite. You're the ones doing all the work. You're the ones creating all profit. Maybe you're the ones who deserve that profit, not the people who exploit you, and then take your wealth that you create and call it corporate profit, and then use it to fund their private little utopia for the rich. That seems like not a good use of our time as working class people, funding their utopia. It's good and it's fun, and we're alive. And within 80 years, everyone listening to this, myself included, we're all probably going to be gone. So I just need you to, when you're considering what's important, what's not important, I need you to consider that fact that within 80 years, none of us will be here. So maybe the little things that we worry about don't matter so much, and maybe the big things should matter a lot more. These sorts of bigger concepts of inequality and suffering and bigotry and hate, war, imperialist wars, genocide happening, children being slaughtered. Maybe these are the things that we need to have alarms and bells going off in our heads about. Like Free Palestine, from the river to the sea, that is a case of well-documented genocide happening. We're looking at well over 15,000 children having been killed in like 8 months, with a total death toll now of, I think, over 40,000, and that's not even calculating people who've died of starvation, people who are missing, buried under the rubble. We need an end to apartheid, colonialism, capitalism, imperialism, imperialist wars for profit, for oil. It's all sick and it's all twisted. Our governments are filled with greedy psychopaths who are bought by corporations and billionaires who make the laws benefit themselves and screw all of us over. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. I have gone from Christian to full-on atheist. I've gone through multiple phases of atheism. I've written a book. Be on the lookout for it. I hope I get it published this summer. As of right now, I still have no job once June ends, so I may have a lot of free time this summer to get that published. Thank you.